First it was too early, and then I didn't even hear it upstairs. Om Yam Brahma Varnendra Rudra Marutaha Shtundvanti Devoishtavoy Vedai Sangha Parakramo Panashadoi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhanavashtita Tadgatena Manasha Prashanti Yam Yogino Yashantum Navidhu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the saints and sages of different religions call by various names. Our eternal salutations to that one whose glories are sung in the religious hymns of the different religious scriptures of the world, but whose infinite and undying grandeur no mortal mind can comprehend. Our eternal salutations to that one upon whom the devotees meditate in the shrine of their hearts, realizing an ineffable presence in their deepest contemplations. May he prompt our minds toward the path of truth and righteousness. May she reveal herself into our souls and dispel the gloom of death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Satyena, Om Satyena Labhyastapassa Hyesa Atma Samyagyanena Brahmacharyena Nityam Antaha Sharirehi Jyotirmayo Hi Shubraha Yam Pashanti Atayaha Kshinadoshaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Atman, the indivisible self within all beings, is realized by moderation, by knowledge, by austerity, and by veracity, all of these constantly cultivated. When mental impurities dissolve due to this practice, then the seer beholds it naturally, existing everywhere, even here in this very mind and body. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the studies. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Presently, we're in the third day of our retreat here in Seattle, Washington, and we welcome our live viewing audience into this final class of our retreat. Hopefully our students, our local students in Hawaii are watching, and also our students down in San Francisco at the SRV ashram there in the Healing Center. And hopefully some of the students around the world and in India are able to take advantage of this live streaming opportunity and all the opportunities that will come on Saturday and Sunday to dip oneself into the ocean of Jnanam, or Atma-Gyan, the knowledge of the self, the most noble of all subjects, the best of all endeavors, the highest of all goals. And when we approach it, we approach the preceptor with reverence, we approach the path with commitment, and we approach the truth of Brahman with all attention and 100% focus, because who knows when these three precious jewels will be forgotten. Guru, Dharma, and Sangha, sometimes they're called in various traditions. It's not given to very many beings around the world to have such an opportunity to receive such a boon. It's actually very much of a privilege to be able to hear it from the lips of an illumined preceptor, also to be able to contemplate it, manana, roll it around your mind, and to finally bring it to full fruition, nidijasana. As we chanted this morning, Om Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananarapi, Nidijasam Lakshagunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. Nirvikalpakam is the key word. That's the highest and best of all samadhis. Non-duality, Advaita, Nirvikalpaka, the blowing out of all kalpas, of all mind's imaginations. As Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita this morning, he mentioned the word sankalpa 3 or 4 times in that chapter on Dhyan Yoga that we listened to live, and with a musical accompaniment, the chanting of the ancient Bhagavad Gita, which all of you say. One person even said to me today, well, that's why I come to retreat, to hear the Gita chanted. So that's a fine reason, just to be able to listen to the words of Sri Krishna after so many thousands of years. It's wonderful that these scriptures have not been interpolated in any untoward way. They come to us very fresh, like hot lava from the mouth of the crater all the way down to the ocean floor, which goes into an underground cave to keep itself sizzling hot so that it will flow into the ocean and add more. The name of Brahman means to expand. And whereas we know philosophically consciousness does not expand and contract, it stays same all the time, unchanging, immutable. Nevertheless, it is stable, but it becomes manifold, as our chant says. Om Drishyam Pratitam Prapilapayan San. The seer sees that it's stable in the heart, see, but then it's always becoming manifold somehow. Call it Maya, call it Prakriti, call it Divine Mother, Shakti, that force is there, taking the non-dual wisdom that is eternal, Sanatana Dharma, and somehow manifesting it into names and forms. As Sri Ramakrishna Paramhamsa used to say, I see that all this has become Brahman. See, so everything was laid out like a great feast, like a great puja, and then Brahman entered into it. See, like an octopus sends out its tentacles and feelers and arms out to the ocean floor in the dark bottom, you see, to feel its own world. So Brahman wants to feel everything, as it were, through names and forms. And they happen at different gradations, as we saw by our recent chant on the lokas, the nadis, and the transmigration of souls. And that great dream that everyone is involved in right now, that great sankalpa, to go back to that word again. So we, in order to refine our consciousness, in order to qualify ourselves, then we hear the truth first. And then manana, we roll it around our minds. And then nidijasana, we bring it full circle and realize it in this life. You can't leave this knowledge in books and in temples. Because why? Because in books and temples, vain thy search. Yes, right. So full circle means to bring that out and express it. And you want to make sure that you understand it well. You don't want to, the Vedanta is a precision mechanism. You don't want to try and wield it before you fully understand it and you're capable and ready. That is, you've spent many years in the path, listened to the teachers, studied yourself, because that's the third element, is your own spiritual experience. Aparokshanubhuti, a good 8-syllable Sanskrit word for you to contemplate. Aparoksha, that is this, your own spiritual experience with the matter. You have to enter in and engage in your own enlightenment, engage in your own awakening. Until that, they say life isn't worth living. You're just sort of like the walking dead, moving around without any real sentiency in you, without any real awareness, without you having your consciousness awakened. So then it behooves you and also benefits all other beings to be a willing participant in your own spiritual awakening. Very important. So over the course of these last 4 classes, in these 2 days we've been on retreat in Seattle, we've taken 4 subjects to look at in the Manana style. We want to hear it and then we want to consider it for a while. And last night we had satsang, we had some questions around it. And they will go on through email and through classes in Portland, which are also live streamed, by the way, next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. In fact, the next 2 weekends. And in San Francisco, live streamed Saturday and Sunday also. So once we leave the confines of this retreat, we can also check in with this group. You see, we are a sangha, and we can stay close-knit through these modern technologies that we're using to proliferate the truth. And that's using objects in Maya to the best possible way, you see, rather than becoming lost in them, becoming attached to them, having them stolen, or getting bored with them. There are very different ways, which we learned here on the meaning of an objects chart yesterday, that the object is proven to be empty in different ways. So in these past 4 classes we've had 4 subjects: lokas, nadis, and transmigration of souls. We want to know about the worlds within, the kingdoms of heaven within. We want to know about the pathways that permeate those worlds. I mean, if you just looked at a big, one of those big anthill demonstrations at the museum, and you see the ants working on all levels, they've got layers and layers, like a big castle. And so this whole universe of 3 different worlds in 7 different lokas, with thousands and thousands of various planets, gross, subtle, and causal, all infused with 100 times 100 times 72,000 subtle nerve endings, nadis they're called, which run through it all. It's that big network. It's that big cloud castle in the sky. And held together by groups of individuals like human beings. How many now? 7, 8 billion on this planet. And then an equal amount or more of ancestors in the Bhuvar lokas, Svar lokas, the other lokas that we studied. And then there's also the celestials and angelic beings, the devas and the devis, the gods and goddesses. And then there's a whole cross-section of illumined souls that are constantly paying attention to these realms beneath them. Coming back again and again, as Sri Krishna says in the Gita, from age to age I embody myself forth to destroy the decrepit dharma and resurrect the new dharma. So always keep those truths that are important to us fresh and new. Every 500-600 years or so you'll see a great soul like that coming. And his entourage. That's how you usually tell an avatar is accompanied by the Noble Eight of Buddha, or the 12 Apostles of Christ, or more recently the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, the Kali Yuga avatar, who has brought Divine Mother to us in full view. No more hiding, Mother. You cannot escape us for long. I will tie you to a tuft of my hair, so you'll always be on my mind, as one song sings. And I'm ready for the final journey with my provisions of Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali. I now come to you. See, I now search you out, seek you out. So in order to make that seeking easier, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has come and manifested this great Mother in full view of the entire world. So if you're in a yuga called Kali Yuga, then you need a goddess named Kali. If the yuga or the time you're in is very dark, then why not get a black goddess to come, you see, and outdark the darkness. And besides, her darkness is the luminous black. Kali black is luminous black, and it turns all her devotees black. You see, that means we're all big, huge bumblebees, flying in and out of her black hair. You see, as Ram Prasad Sen, the Bengali poet saint, sings, in and out of her hair. We like to merge, we like to come out so we can merge again. See? That's the sport of an enlightened soul, more enlightened soul. But as we looked at that chart, nadis, lokas, and transmigrations of souls, we found that there are a whole plethora of beings who do not do that consciously. That's called samsara, or maya, or cycles of rebirth and death in ignorance. How can that be when the soul is birthless and deathless? You have this on one side, you want to contemplate dualities, the birthless deathlessness of the soul. And on the other side you have this whole host of beings who are given to the idea of finitude. See, they're thinking themselves to be born, to live and to die. And even then they don't know how many times they're going through it. They think maybe just once. But, of course, where else but in India can you find the truth of esoteric topics like that, as we were saying yesterday. So even though Maya marches all the time, like the birthday party we had last night here at the retreat, happy birthday to Ekendra, happy birthday to Savitri. Savitri is now with us, the greatest woman of India. She has come, so we're really happy. Happy birthday to Loke Ma, and to Annapurna Sharda, all of these births. Who else had a birthday in the last week? Manjushri. Manjushri, the sword is wielding the sword. She comes to retreat. So even though we had a birthday on several counts, then why am I teaching birthlessness and deathlessness? Usually we're engaging in birthdays. So we sang happy unbirthday to you, happy unbirthday to you. Because old Vedantists never die. They just live eternally in consciousness, in full awareness. So our concern then is less for ourselves. The less you're attracted to this world and attached to this world, Swami Vivekananda says, and Holy Mother says, the better for you. So when you become a participant in your own enlightenment, then you tend to take other beings with you, knowingly or not. See, take other beings with you along the path. You're opening up closed nerve channels. See, just like you would do in a body. When prana isn't flowing and things are atrophied, and you do some exercises, or you take some medicine, or you engage in various practices which just open up those nerve channels, right? And all of a sudden you can move again. It's the same in the mind, in the subtle body. They're closed, they're constricted, and it's not fun. See? It's dark in there. I can't even remember my past lifetime. You see. I don't know what makes me act the way I'm acting. Like when I teach people in prison now, I go to prisons, and they say, I don't know what made me do that. see. There's basically good people there. And they don't know why they ended up there, see. So if the yogi gets a hold of a mind, takes on a body-mind mechanism, as we say in Vedanta, then the first thing he'll do is bring light in there through these channels. Just open it up so that light can leap through the nerves, as Sri Aurobindo said. Speaking of his poem Savitri, beautiful poem by Sri Aurobindo, epic, great length, called Savitri. Light is leaping through the nerves. So he's not calling body nerves, you see, but nadis. It was in the Gita again this morning, Nada Brahma, Shabda Brahman. Krishna mentioned it several times, the path to God through vibration or through sound. So, as you were hearing me speak, isn't it opening up nadis in your mind? Okay, now keep them open. See, because they can open up, but they can also constrict and close as soon as you leave the classroom. So your practice of everyday sadhana means consciousness in everyday life. Talking to one devotee yesterday in a meeting, said, well, I feel a little guilty about just doing my sadhana and then going out into the world and forgetting God, and then doing my sadhana and then going out in the world and forgetting God. And I said, don't. That's perfectly natural. Maybe great adepts can attempt something like that, but no, keep your sadhana sacrosanct, just between you and God, and don't try and spread it out in the world. It'll do that naturally. You'll do that naturally. Your very bones will teach. Who said that? Sri Ramakrishna. To who? Narendra, the young Vivekananda. He said, I can't teach, I don't know how to teach. Ramakrishna laughed and said, well, your very bones will teach. You won't be able to stop that light. But in the meantime, keep your practice sacrosanct, holy, away from the eyes of the world. Grant unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but keep unto yourself what is the Lord's, you see. So it's not like you can go out there and be all naive and say, oh, I'm going to change the world. The world has some surprises in store for you. It is already ever-changing. And you're trying to change the ever-changing? You think any change that you make is going to stay current? Any good that you do to the world is not going to turn into a negative, and any negative that you commit in the world is not going to turn back into another good? Just look what happened to Tibet. It was all negative, wasn't it? Now look at it. It's very good for us. Talk about opening up nerves and channels. Now we have Tibetan Buddhists spread all over the world, not just hidden away in some Patala palace in Tibet, in some mountain. See? So, if you want to see God, then you should see as God sees. A great Christian mystic said that. If you want to see God, then you should see as God sees. God sees with a single eye, if he sees at all. And, of course, if he's even a he. Forgive our limitation with the English language. But that, tat, you see, is an all-seeing verity. Not that it has to have eyes, inner or outer, but that we are its eyes. You see. Didn't we just say all of this is Brahman, Brahman's manifestation, and then Brahman got into it? That's the Vishishta-Advaita view, is that all these were projected ahead of time, and then consciousness decided to get into it. But it was consciousness that projected it all, and it's consciousness into which it will all dissolve. Everything is soluble back into Brahman. Like laya, the word that came up yesterday. Omkara laya, chintaya dhyan, dissolving the mind all back into Om, and then that back into Brahma. And by Om, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So in the beginning it was with God, you see. And then it was God, when you realized that they were one and the same. Before that you saw the Word and God as separate things. And then it was with God, and then it was God, you see. You saw them. So it's a matter of merging one into the other. You go back to the ultimate source. It's involution, not evolution. We found out enough about evolution. We went so far out that we weren't even satisfied looking at the planets, but we had to take objects and splinter them and look at their composite points, you see, and found atoms and molecules and neutrons and quarks and subatomic particles. Isn't that far out enough for you? It's far out, man. It's far out. And what did you find there? Emptiness. There's nothing but emptiness there. 2,550 years ago, Lord Buddha told you that. Why didn't you listen? Why did you forget him? 2,000 years, Christ told you, birds have nests, foxes have holes, but you have no place to lay your head here. Why didn't you listen? Every 500, 600 years, a great soul will come and tell you, so why don't you listen? Renounce this world. It's empty. That is, it will never fulfill you. That's the first meaning of an object. It's standing there telling you, ha ha, I will attract you to me, you see. I'm a television set, you see. I'm my favorite grandmother's doily, you see. I'm all these things, you see. Now come and touch me, feel me, you see, own me, possess me. Rub me against your face and say, oh, how soft, you see. Seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, and smelling. Of an external world only. But now, if that's not external for us, then we have to make it more externalized, you see, and go further and further out. But what about the kingdoms of heaven are within you? What did he mean by that? Or by my father's mansion has many chambers. Is he talking about some castle he owns somewhere? Along the Rhine? See? No, there must be this inner chamber. Like this whole series of lokas inside of you, you see, and nerve endings that go beyond just nerve endings in the body and tie together and become whole rivers and pathways inside of you. And you can meditate there for as long as you want, you see. You can be like Swami Vivekananda, meditating for 700 years at a time. You're complaining about having to sit an hour in the morning? Try 700 years meditation. I want to be a voice without a body, he said. And come and inform us without having to take the trouble to actually take on a physical body. And go through the 6 transformations, because birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death come to everyone. From the ant to the avatar, everyone suffers those. Those are, when you say we have compassion for all beings suffering, or we want to save all beings, sentient beings from suffering, we're not talking about saving them from those 6. We're talking about saving them from the effects of those primal causes. Today, Sri Krishna said in the Gita, those, when they find that inside of themselves, to which they think is the greatest thing they've ever discovered, and they connect with it, and they immerse in it, and they realize it, then let the connection with that be the destroyer of pain. And let's give it the name yoga. Let yoga be the destroyer of pain for you. So even if you do pass through the 6 transformations, it'll seem like nothing to you. Like Lord Vashishta says, you know, being shot with 1,000 arrows will feel like little feathers tickling you. See? Being disemboweled on the battlefield will feel like a massage with sandalwood oil on your stomach. You see? So transcend your suffering in that way. See, even that suffering that is due to you, due to taking on a body. Everyone has that karma of the body. So that's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today when we're looking into this 5th subject. Because the 2nd subject was the curtain of nescience. Yes. Let's see what's behind curtain number. That's curtain number 4. 1, 2, and 3, we know it's there. Objects for our pleasure. The curtain number 4 is something only Nachiketas would ask about. What's beyond that curtain? Oh, don't look over there. Don't go there. Stay nice and in your body and happy. A happy little life, you see. A grey little study of life, as Vivekananda called it. So the third point that we came upon then was, third point of study. Yeah, destruction of ignorance, right? Destruction of ignorance. And then we took up the meaning of objects. And that was sort of where we left off yesterday's class. And we invite you now in to do a quick review of that. Meaning of objects, they're empty. Empty of abiding substance, empty of the ability to fulfill you. When we say empty of the ability to fulfill you, then we say 4 or 5 things about it. Objects get stolen, objects decay, objects break, objects get lost, and objects become boring. There's 5 good reasons for you right there to give up objects. And you might as well take it in the other direction. Objects become pleasurable. Objects then make me attached to them. Objects then make me obsessed with them. Then objects place me into bondage. So either way you go with objects, it's rather a lose-lose situation. Now, for the one who is destroying pain through the practice of yoga, we just chanted it. Satyena labhyastapasa hesa atma. Samyagyanena brahmacharyena nityam. Brahmacharyena by moderation, you see, of everything, of senses and so forth. That we realize the Atman through that. That's one of the ways we realize the Atman. So that's the middle path, right? Moderation. They often call it the path of moderation. So what about just moving through objects? Letting them be there, see, in the periphery of your consciousness, in the periphery of your vision, external and external. That is, in the periphery of your consciousness when you're in meditation, they may try to crowd in. But the great yogi Uddalaka said, away, and no thoughts, no objects, thank you, I'm done with them. I'm only headed for that curtain of nescience, and I'm going to pierce through it and see the light behind it. And when I see the light behind it, I'm going to pierce through that too. Because the duality of light and dark needs to be transcended in me. And also the periphery of objects right now, you see, in my vision. See, that also should not distract me. So that's one way to deal with objects, the yogic way. The seer has become attached to the scene. Patanjali, the father of yoga, said. So that's the problem we're facing. We must detach ourselves. Give me 2 words for that. In yoga it's called fifth limb. Fifth limb. Pratyahara. And in Vedanta it's called? Vairagya, yeah. So that detachment is prescribed by all darshanas of India. And probably even in English you'll probably hear the word. Why don't you get a little detachment around that? If you're going to your psychological circles and your therapy and so forth. Get a little detachment. Get a little room. Create a little space. I need space between me and the object so I can catch my breath, because objects are coming at me 100 a minute. They're falling all around me, even against my will, unconsciously. Pens, glasses. So then the middle path is prescribed, as we just chanted. Moderation, knowledge, get some knowledge. Remember, wasn't that beautiful today, Max? And Krishna said exactly what we were talking about 2 days ago. The pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. So right there in the Gita, they're actually making a little distinction between knowledge and wisdom. One's lower and one's higher. You're famous now because I named your name on live streaming. So. But the name also is to be renounced. See? Turn max into maximum realization. So there are ways of dealing with objects, especially one way, the middle path, is you just move amongst the objects of the senses without getting attached to them. Basically, is the teaching. See how you can do that. See how well you can do that. Become a yogi, Arjuna. So that's one of the practices you'll have to engage in. Move among the objects of the senses without getting waylaid or distracted or attached to them. It's a great practice, even on its own. It's like a karma yoga practice. You're supposed to give up the fruits of all actions. That sloka was also in today's chapter on meditation. The only, really, one of the only maybe 2 or 3 mentions of Jnana Yoga in the whole Gita is there in that one chapter. It's like he put it all into one chapter. Called it Dhyan Yoga, the yoga of meditation. Telling you to sit up straight, turn off the senses, draw the senses back into the heart, and place the energy in the head, the prana, and sit not too high, not too low. Even out your breath. These are things to remember, because if you're having a meditation that isn't so noble one morning, I'll just breathe. Just even out your breath. And you'll be surprised how quick your consciousness will come running back to you. That is your stable consciousness. And also you can think of the teachings that you just are hearing every day. So you can roll those over in your mind. That's manana. You can do that at time of meditation, as I told you this morning. But also good to do it, maybe do meditation on its own, and then do the manana, or the swadhyaya, as a practice, independent. Memorizing, chanting, and reciting, and so forth. That's a practice that can be done right next to meditation. So, meaning of the objects is that they're empty, and also they arise out of your own mind. Thoughts, objects are just thoughts made concretized. I mean, Holy Mother couldn't have put it any clearer for you. Objects are just thought made concretized or solidified. So the power of solidity is in us. The power to solidify things. What's the opposite of that? The power to dissolve them, or liquefy them if you wish. See, because liquidity might be applied better to the flow of things, water, and then the flow of prana. There you're talking about gross water and subtle water. See, how things flow, and my thoughts flow, and so forth. So, if you can project, you can also withdraw, and that's the masterful yogi and yogini who can do that, and it can do it at any second or any moment. So you encounter a problem, you can withdraw from it. Don't get bothered by it. See, turn the other cheek, right? Even it out for me. I'm trying to even out everything. This side hurts, this side doesn't. So would you please help me? Because we heard yesterday from Patanjali that reaction to things is the real problem. Not things themselves, because those things will come, good and bad. But if we react to the good and bad, that belies us. You see, that shows us up as being hypocrites. But we're not really yogis and yoginis, because we get upset by good and bad, by pleasure and pain, by life and death, by virtue and vice. We react to them. So non-reaction, very important practice that you can engage in too. So a little bit of review to sort of kick us going here in this first half of our class. We will take a break in a half hour or so. For our live stream audience, we'll be shown a few of these charts close up so you can see them. But let's look at the fifth point of our chart. These are all 5 charts that have not been seen before until this weekend in Seattle. So we're bequeathing them on Seattle and upon the whole world, for those who are interested in watching to take in and consider on the level of Jnana Yoga, because it's very seldom that you get these kinds of teachings just anywhere, and it's also very rare that you get them in visuals. So now you've got them as live transmission from the teacher, you've got them as in books, and you've got them as visuals. Shame on you if you're not practicing them, you see, if you're not trying to comprehend them and put them into practice. Shravana, manana, nididhyasana. Hear, study, realize. Then put it all aside if you want. See, it's philosophy, as I said yesterday. And just put it in there and watch it do its work. Like some subtle acid that's burning away. Like Vivekananda said, I will compare truth to the most acidic substance in the worlds, in all the worlds. Acidic. So it's like acid. It burns away everything over time. Some things it burns away right away, quickly. And other things like granite, it has to burn through. So the dense karmas, you might have to study this for 10, 20 years or a lifetime and get through some of those dense karmas. But things that are bothering you on the surface, they'll dissolve right away as soon as you hear this. Don't you feel that when you're in a class or after you leave a class? Feel sort of mental freedom that has come to you by hearing this. That means these nadis have opened up, you see, and energy is flowing. But as soon as you go to your neighbor and say, how's the weather and how are you? The nadis close up again. See? You should go to your neighbor and say, what about that beautiful teaching I just heard? Let's talk about that. See? Let's talk about that with each other. And then you know you have a sangha, people who can talk about the truth they've just heard, and keep the subject high. Keep the bar raised. Your default zone will then just be Jnana Yoga. And then we can welcome you and say, welcome to the level of the Sapta Rishis. You see, the 7 Rishis who teach these teachings throughout eons to people. And as they teach them, people learn the insomnia of yoga. They get into an ever-awake state, and their interest is perked. And they never know what boredom is. People complaining about boredom? No. Ever since I found these teachings, I have never been bored, not once. It's just not anything that I can even comprehend anymore. You live them, you eat them, you sleep them, and actually that last one is a very good thing to do. Instead of just going to sleep, go to sleep in the Jnana Yoga. First thought that comes when you wake up should be the teachings. The last thought that before you fall asleep should be the teachings, you see, or the mantra. And this tends to fill in those gaps in the continuous line of consciousness that you're falling out of when you go to sleep, or when you die, or when you phase out and your eyes start to close and you feel kind of sleepy. See? There's a continuous line of consciousness that is always a sutra. It's a sutradhara, she who's holding it. So she's holding the sutra, and you're in the sutra circling like a nadi, like a nerve ending, like a current. The prana is flowing on, your thoughts are flowing with it. And if you can learn the method of staying in that flow, then boredom goes away forever. Depression is not even a consideration. You'll always be elevated, always be buoyant. So Sri Ramakrishna said, charge up the chitta. Chitta is your thoughts. Charge them up every day with thoughts on reality alone. Dhanur grahitva upanishadam mahastram sharam hupasanashita sanjayita. Take as bow that mighty weapon called the Upanishads. Fasten to them the arrow of mind, made sharpened by thoughts on reality alone. Then point it at the target, O student, and release and penetrate that imperishable Brahman. If you walked up to a seer and said that, he said, I don't understand that because my arrow is always in the target. I never took it out and had to reshoot it. See? It's buried in the very middle forever. So those are those who are masterful or past masters at this natural concentration. See? The seer beholds it naturally, existing everywhere, in everything. Isn't that what we just chanted? Otherwise you have to practice knowledge, austerity, moderation, and have veracity, you see. And then when mental impurities dissolve, then you see it. That's the curtain of nescience dissolving, by the way. And you're the one that dissolves it, and then you let it come crashing down again at some point, usually when you're going to sleep. But a man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have become radiant meditations. So when my guru came, taught me the insomnia of yoga, and I decided to stay awake with him forever. Sleep forever. Never fall asleep again. In the sleep of ignorance. Because the sleep of ignorance and the curtain of nescience and Maya all conspire in the human mind. And the result is births and deaths in cycles, in ignorance. What Lord Buddha called samsara. So I want to wake up from that dream. See? And know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. See? So with this chart, we come upon some of the causes for the lack of spiritual success. I thought it's something that's been mentioned by Shankara in the Vivekachudamani. And he starts us off really well in the teachings. And who of us have not complained about running hot and cold in spiritual life? These cycles that come, as you can talk about the cycle of karma and cycle of time and the cycle of birth and death and ignorance, but on every one of those cycles there's a high point, and you feel sattvic, that is filled with light. And as you feel that, you feel, I'll never feel bad again. I'll never fall asleep again. My spiritual life was successful. I am now awakened. Perhaps I'm even enlightened. But no. That's not the case. One morning I woke up and my knowledge was gone, utterly gone. The song is supposed to sing, my ignorance is gone, utterly gone. What happened to my awareness, my higher awareness, you see? So we all complain of these problems, and so the great seers have outlined really what they are and what we need to overcome. So it's all well and good to water the flowers and not the weeds, you know, and that's sort of a modus operandi we adapt for attitude. But the practical truth of the matter is that the weeds come, even if you stop watering them. You know, there's some weeds in my garden, at least, that are very tenacious. Some of my tender little sprouts and plants will die if I don't water, but I can not water that weed for a long time, and it's just sitting there. It just loves it. I don't need any water. I'm a yogi weed. Super weed. So let's dive in the remaining time in this first half into this chart. The first quote would be nice by Shankara. Spiritual success depends on qualification. Here's a good time for a sort of announcement, is that if you remember the chart, qualification is king. I showed it for the first time early this year. It has a big picture of Vivekananda sitting in a chair with his black, nice, smart outfit on that was created for him here, and very regal, and, realized soul there, coming to the West and coming to the world. So it has a list of six or seven darshanas on it, and each one there's 6 or 7 bullet points. How you would qualify yourself in yoga, in Vedanta, in Samkhya yoga, in Buddhism, in Tantra, and in Yoga Vishishta, and maybe a few other systems like that that are prominent ones in India, the ones that are really remarkable. That is, you should remark about them. And so that chart will form the foundation of our retreat in February here in this very spot. So, and like I said yesterday, be my Valentines on that day, because it's Valentine's Day we start in. So with that kind of love for an ishtam, or an ideal like Swami Vivekananda, we will look at that chart and we'll pick out one bullet point out of each darshana, because the whole thing is qualification is king. We must qualify ourselves, and this applies doubly to the Westerners. You see, the thing in India is they may have forgotten the profundity, depth, and import of a lot of their scriptures, but it's not buried very low below the surface in their case. You just brush it off. The gold is buried just under a little bit of surface dirt. You see, just brush it off, and they remember immediately, and they commit immediately. And that's why they're so successful here when they leave the country, the subcontinent. They become prominent specialists in all their fields. So there's this inner samskara. You see, that's deep. I brought all my samskara charts today. If we have a chance, I'll show you what a human mind consists of in today's world. But anyway, an announcement for that, because it is Swami Vivekananda's 150th birth centenary, or what's the word for it? I can't pronounce it. 150th year since he's come amongst us. Sesquicentennial. That's nice. 150th. So since, however it's pronounced, we can at least pronounce his name, Vivekananda. It's the bliss of discrimination between the real and the unreal, or the important and the unimportant. So that will be the subject of our retreat, and it'll also fall on Valentine's Day, and it'll also fall on 150 years since he's come to Earth. It'll be celebrated all over the world. I was in Nepal just some months ago, or a little over a year, and we saw even on the TV they were having commercials about Vivekananda. I've never seen that on TV. And especially associating it with Youth Day, how to bring the youth into these teachings of Vivekananda is very important.
We should have commercials of Vivekananda here in America too.
I don't know about that. We need to learn how to keep the ideal high. We're not trying to sell anything through Vivekananda, so those commercials were just basically to promote his appearance and to attract the youth for higher teaching. So yeah, we'd have to be very careful how we use something like that, which is precisely why there's no movies on Ramakrishna yet, and I'm happy. A lot of people have said, why isn't there a movie on Gandhi and a movie on this and that? Why isn't there a movie on Ramakrishna? And I said, wait its time, Hopefully we'll qualify ourselves to really know what that being was before we put him on celluloid or into digital fragments. Because the movie Gandhi, quite frankly, I liked it, but I went to India and a lot of the Indians were very unhappy with it. And some of them were very, very deep thinkers and very, very deep devotees, and they didn't think it portrayed Gandhi in the right way. So, and that's not always positive either. There were some things about Gandhi that the Indians didn't like. Human nature, likes and dislikes. So, whatever the case may be, a good chance with this quote, because he says, spiritual success depends on qualification. So, in the West, let's think about qualifying ourselves in these darshanas. When you've come to SRV and its first spiritual director, if SRV is to exist after my passing, then basically what you're getting is a new kind of dispensation based in Ramakrishna Sarada tradition, Vivekananda tradition, that pretty much is throwing at you all darshanas. But you'll get that at Vedanta centers and at other spiritual centers too, but usually you don't get it specified where it's coming from. If you read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, you're reading a combination of yoga, tantra, samkhya, Vedanta, and Sikhism and other things are mixed in there, but they don't tell you where they're coming from. So your qualification is a bit generalized. But here, we're taking these darshanas out and specifying them and saying, well, this is where that level of teaching came from. This is the deity who was associated with it, and the teacher who was the emanation of the deity. So basically, if you know that Shankara connects back to Lord Shiva, and you know that Krishna connects back to Vaishnavas and Vishnu and so forth. So you're making these connections that are going to make these inner roads, these inner nadis, a lot clearer and free of obstacles when you start to course along them, when you have access to them, when you spend long amounts of time inside, contemplating and meditating. You won't just think, oh, this is external and internal. You'll think, this is real and unreal. I've left behind the unreal, and I'm coming closer and closer to the real all the time, to reality. Because, the pratitam pravilapayam san matram anandaganam vibhabayam samahita san bahir antaram va. Bahir, the outer, antaram, the inner. You're supposed to take the outer and the inner and put them into one indivisible state, because that's the way it is. It's not like, you're creating something new by doing it. It's that you've created subdivisions. It's the opposite. You're not creating anything new. You've already become a victim of the old. The minute you were born in this world, you became a victim of the old, of the decaying, of the dying convention, of the old dharma, of old ways of thinking. And you were raised in that. When you wake up to that, you see the power of Maya. You don't blame any particular person, like a mother or a father or a grandfather or a government figure or a church leader. You realize that this is the way Maya works. It's this old, stodgy convention that turns people into hypocrites, backbiters, and spiritual failures. Even when they try and get out of it, they encounter these difficulties. So, what about taking the outer and the inner and just turning them into one indivisible state, turning them back to what it really was? It's like double vision all of a sudden becoming clear. Or somebody taking the focus knob on a screen, on the projector, and just clearing it up with a twist. You see, tweak that pot for me, God. A pot, you tweak a pot in recording jargon, it's like you just EQ it, or you balance it, or you add reverb so it sounds more godly. That's called tweaking a pot, or aligning a machine. Maybe it doesn't make any sense to people nowadays because they have digital everything. But you still have to tune up devices, you see, tune them in. So that's what we have to do with our minds. We have to render them into one indivisible state. And that's not enough. Once that indivisible state is rendered, then what do? We meditate on that indivisible state, because we've been meditating on the dual state for so long that it's become a habit. So then when you leave the room after class, you fall back into old habits. What you want to do is walk in the truth every day, every second, every minute. And you want it to become so natural that thousands of people will flock to you like they did to Vivekananda, without him even lifting a finger. When the lotus blooms in the wood, the bees will come of their own accord. You don't have to send them an engraved invitation. Dear bee, the lotus of Ramakrishna is blooming in the woods. Please come, RSVP. No, it's natural and quick. And we're all the bees, aren't we? Big black bees, humming along, looking for nectar. Some of us are buzzing about the flowers in a tapestry. One song in India says, "Oh mind, you're such a noble bee. Why are you buzzing around the fake flowers in a tapestry? Turn to the original. Come to the real flower in the woods." So anyway, render everything into one indivisible state and meditate on that state. And then he says, pass your time contentedly and be free. Because if you can accomplish that, then all of these distractions and these weights and these brooding and problems that we're about to look into will be nothing. Okay, so on that note, let's look into them for a little while before our break. I didn't even get one sentence of that quote out of my mouth before I went on that preamble. Please forgive me. Spiritual success depends on qualification. And while we're on that subject, thus the seeker should take to study and reasoning after approaching the Guru, who must be amongst the best of knowers of Brahman and an ocean of mercy. Like I found Swami Shishananda, and like our spiritual founder, like Siksen, an ocean of mercy and best among the knowers of Brahman. So there you see a nice image to start us off. Ramakrishna and a woman has fallen at his feet. It could be other stories in his life, but I'm tending to think that this was the time. The artist's rendition was based on the fact that this woman had lost husband and son in the same month, same period of time anyway. So she was very distraught. So she came to Sri Ramakrishna and poured out her woes. And she said, I think she ended with something like, now I have nobody. And Sri Ramakrishna jumped up, grabbed her by the arms, and danced around the room, singing, she who has no one has God. She who has no one has God. And the woman was probably pretty shocked, you might imagine. But it was a unique therapy. It was cutting right through all the woe is me weight, the ego wallowing, with good reason. And there's the ego that wallows for no good reason, but there's also egos that wallow for very good reason, isn't there? Because as humans, we feel these things. So anyway, the report was that woman left very much elevated in spirits that day, left his room. So I'm thinking that might be what that is. You can see that her shadow is very nicely done here. Is dancing with Ramakrishna already, is her real self. Formless, deathless, birthless, childless, motherless, husbandless, which is what her true self is anyway, isn't it? So, with that as a beginning, let's look at the first cause of lack of spiritual success. Attachment to objects and pleasures. Okay, let's go back and study this chart then. The meaning of objects we've already had. So just as you think of that and hear this quote, just think about that chart we've studied. Sri Ramakrishna says, in his characteristic way, once a sweet meat has gone down the throat, one can hardly remember what it tasted like. I said that to someone at breakfast this morning. So, isn't it true? I mean, if you think back on all the experiences you've had, number one, you can't really remember what they were really like because they were in the moment. So all you have is a kind of a wispy memory. And number two, been there, done that. I don't want to do it again. I mean, this is what a forward-thinking, forward-moving person would think. But a person who's conventional and bound by habit and so forth, I think I'll go back and do that again, many times. You see, I think I'll repeat it ad infinitum, including all the lifetimes that I did it in. You see. But really, when you think about it, to quote Manjushri's favorite saying of Sri Ramakrishna, you don't want to lick up the spittle you spat out on the sidewalk 2 minutes ago. It's not appetizing, is it? Besides, you don't know whose spittle you might come upon.
I thought it was yours, but it wasn't.
That's even worse. So it means that all these experiences you've had, just let them go and live. I mean, you boast about living in the moment. Now how about really doing it? But living in the moment is not living in the present, because the present is hooked up to the past, and the past is hooked up to the future, right? So past, present, and future are 3 phases of time. You want to be the witness of the 3 phases of time so that you can live in the eternal moment. The eternal moment is something that you are approaching every time you sit in meditation. You have a chance to live in the eternal moment, because you can cut time down in meditation. It would be good, wouldn't it, if we could? Because otherwise it expands, and your aches and pains become more. And the hour seems like a day. But no, there are meditations in which an hour can seem like a couple minutes. It just depends on the state of your mind. And you can have an effect on the state of your mind, simply by breathing, for instance. Simply by recalling a scripture or something you've memorized. This is your free will. It's up to you to do this. Or you can wallow. For no good reason or for good reason. Or you could just give up all wallowing. I now hereby renounce all wallowing. Didn't we look at the curtain of nescience chart and talk about wallowing pretty much, and brooding, you see? Brooding on death, fear, doubt, and ignorance. But we just chanted, destroy all death, fear, doubt, and darkness. That grace destroys all death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Grace. We talked about in satsang last night. So Ramakrishna then says to us, once the sweetmeat's gone down the throat, you can't even hardly remember what it tasted like. So he's saying just let go of the past and this flow of experiences, and don't try and live in the flow of experiences. Try and live in the experiencer. Does that make sense? The one who's having the experience. Don't just dream and live in the dream. Try and understand who the dreamer is. From dreams awake, from bonds be free. Know the truth. Thou art he, thou art she. Vivekananda used to wake people up at retreats saying that. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Those are all quotes out of the Upanishads. And conveniently put into English, so that he could wield them against our ignorance, you see. Thin our curtain of nescience. Destroy our brooding. Send us toward a place beyond wallowing. So we don't want to be wallowananda, the bliss of wallowing, right? The bliss of brooding, sankalpananda. We don't want that. Let's go on. Delusion concerning the true nature of Brahman, the self, and the world. He says, if my devotees know who I am, who they are, and what the world is, they will be fine. I won't have to worry them anymore. That fish is cooked, I can go on and cook some others. You see. So those three things, very important to contemplate, isn't it? Who the Lord is, who I am and what my relationship to him, her is, Lord and Mother, and also what the world is. It may be that you'll have to start out on the third step, most people. I better find out what this world is, because if I jump from the lowest step to the highest step, I'll always have doubt about those middle steps. I'll always have doubt. It may not even make that much difference in the ultimate realization, but I can never become a Jivan Mukta or a Bodhisattva with that kind of doubt. I could go to Brahman and dissolve forever, have no hope for me, for the world, forevermore. I'm gone and gone forever, if you can do it. Most people don't even want to do it. Even if they consider enlightenment, they say, I think I'll have enlightenment in form. See, most people are like that. To consider enlightenment beyond formlessness is something else, you see. Vivekananda, you can sit for 700 years like a wooden statue. It's not for me. Who said that? Not me. So to know what the world is going to fill in those gaps. As Vivekananda puts it, Shankara puts it very nicely in the Vivekachudamani. He says basically, everything from unmanifested prakriti down to the element earth is the non-self. Period. It's the non-self. It's insentient. It shines by some other light. It's not the source. Each of those are cause and effects of each other. It's not till I get to the Word where I find an ultimate source. The remote source, the remote cause of everything is the Word. It's the beginning of form. You know, like we were looking at the Nadis chart, for instance, you see. All of this in the 6 chakras below, no matter how high some of these realms are and some of these pathways, then on these lower courseways down here, is all about giving up form or taking on form. So when the soul, hard to speak about non-dually, but when consciousness wants to separate itself from the ocean, like a hailstone. You become a hailstone instead of remaining a mass of water, massive ocean of consciousness. Then it has to take a form. So it will have to come down through the Rudra Granthi and take on forms at various levels of consciousness. And then, if it can, it learns how to give them up. Jiva-muktis, Mahatmas, Videha-muktis, Nityasiddhas, those are souls famous for that. So, we think about that when we think about the world and giving up form. And, there's also another way to do it, is to meditate on God both with form and without form. Basically what your meditation will encompass when you get initiated. See? So I said, I'm telling the person, now meditate on Ramakrishna in your heart, on a 1,000-petaled lotus seated there, and repeat his name in your, envisioning everything in your mind's eye. Is that all? Is that what I do? No, after your mind is steady, then dissolve, put down the beads, forget the mantra, dissolve the ishtam, and meditate also in formless Brahman. There are two mints in one. They're refreshing, both of them. No spiritual halitosis for you. You're going to have a consummate spiritual path, you see, consummate spiritual path. And then what does Ramakrishna say in addition to that? God is with form, God is beyond form, and God is beyond both form and formlessness as well. So make sure you keep in mind the limitless, the boundless, the infinite, the eternal, the without boundaries. Sri Ramakrishna described his samadhi as, imagine a goldfish has been kept in a bowl, for years. All of a sudden someone pours it into a lake. Imagine what freedom it would feel. So you can think of that either as your bound state in the form and then getting enlightenment and getting free while living, or you can think of it at the time of death, being released. Either way, it's a very beneficial meditation. And it's also come from the lips of the avatar. It's a statement of truth. Because didn't Sri Krishna say in the Gita today, even a little of this truth saves one from the great fear of death? The fear of death is really, I'm a non-entity, or I don't exist. Nobody says I don't exist. They all say, I do exist. And by the way, that happens from the standpoint of the ego and from the standpoint of the Atman. They both assert, I exist. See? If the ego becomes too assertive, though, we have to go to the higher authority and say, yes, you exist because of. So, there you are, there. Now let's look at, before the break, 12:30. Yes, we have a little time. Failure to awaken spiritually. It's almost a contradiction, isn't it? Lack of spiritual success and its causes is the failure to awaken spiritually. What is the failure to awaken spiritually? It's the failure to awaken spiritually. What can I say? You see. So his quote here is, the boy tells his mother, wake me up when the call of nature comes. The mother says, you'll wake up yourself when that happens. So, Sri Ramakrishna taught like Buddha and like Christ in parables like this, just simple little stories. His mind was so far beyond, so full of wisdom, so full of bliss, so full of love for Mother. All of this stuff he could recount like that. He had a perfect memory. So he learned a song when he was a boy. He remembered it later on and sang it, line for line, word for word, without ever having to even, you just recall it, you see. So this is more than a photograph of memory that the geniuses have. This is a recall of everything that's back in the subconscious, everything that's back, hidden there in the curtain of omniscience. You can actually access it and pull it out. The whole store of unmanifested Prakriti is an open book to him. How do you make a movie about a man like that? Even when you see him in flesh, if you're so fortunate enough to do so, an avatar, you can't believe it. Great beings like Vivekananda couldn't believe him. And who's more qualified than him to recognize an avatar? So he used to say to his brother monks and people who came, you have not understood Ramakrishna or Holy Mother. Understand me first, then you'll understand them. So that spiritual son of Ramakrishna, and also Swami Brahmananda, Kalindi Fula Kamale Madhavena Kridarata Brahmananda Nabastubhyam Sadguru Lokanayaka. Was Vivekananda really a world guru? Or was Brahmananda the world guru? Vivekananda might have been something else than just a world guru. So, this quote then is just a simple way of putting it, isn't it? I just selected the most simple and readily available and obvious sayings that fell from his lips to put him with these points, these bullet points. You'll wake up when the call comes. And if you don't, then there's something amiss, you see. There's some nadi not open, some major artery is not opened in your spiritual life. And you should go there with a construction crew and drills and everything. You know, you're into construction, right? Take the whole crew there. Start excavating. See? Open those channels. It just maybe even take a day, really. I mean, really, actually, if you have a good teacher and a good path and ready wisdom, if you just sat for a day, if you just left a day, like a 3-day retreat, but I mean on your own, just by yourself, because it's your business to get there. A retreat can only sort of, move around your real issues, right? Because your real issues are yours. Nobody else can see them. So, Guru has a good hint, you see, and can peck away on the outside like the mother bird pecking on the egg when here's the chick rustling inside, you see. So they're both pecking at both sides so the freedom can happen, you see, the awakening can happen. But really the issues are yours, you know them best of all. So if you just spend a day deeply ensconced in meditation and study, coming out of meditation, thinking of these teachings, doing some japa, offering a flower on the altar, going back into meditation, non-stop all day. Have someone bring you some food, see? Or don't eat. You can live for 24 hours. A little water, a little fruit juice. And make sure to take that in all reverence. See? And you will get deep into yourself. People are doing it all the time in various ways, but in a real deeply authentic spiritual way, this is the way you would do it. These are the kind of austerities: knowledge, moderation, austerity, and veracity. So the kind of tapas or austerity you do, if it's intensified, could give you enlightenment right away, as Holy Mother was telling us, right? So, in the time of creation, people had wisdom from their very birth. Consequently, they at once realized the unreal nature of the world. They renounced it and practiced austerity. They were liberated in no time. In no time means one lifetime, I think, nowadays. Although Vivekananda does say you should be able to become a yogi in 6 months. If you concentrate yourself. You should be able to become a yogi in 6 months. But a yogi is no small thing to be, a yogini. There's no small title to bestow upon yourself or others. As you move forward in this inspection of causes for lack of spiritual success, you might want to look at this next one. Relying on refuge in home, spouse, wealth, or offspring. People feather their nests, you see, so there's a sense of false security. But nobody inside that nest is giving them teachings. Nobody inside that nest is taking teachings. And nobody has a guru, see. Nobody wants a guru. In fact, they don't want you to have a guru. even if it's an avatar. A lot of the parents of the direct disciples of Ramakrishna said, don't go to that strange man. What? He comes once every few centuries or 1,000 years. See? And you don't want your children to go to him? No, they want you just routed back into Maya. Let's just call it what it is. Delusion. Let's live a good, happy life in the material world with wealth and prosperity. But you'll find that these provide no profound solution. He says, to hope for help from relatives and friends provides no profound solution. Don't you know that all are lost here? And what's the next line of the song?
Everyone lives in pallid imitation of each other.
Everyone lives in pallid imitation of one another. See? So pallid imitation is what we're talking about. Conventional rounds of birth and death, and conventional religion, going to church once a week on Sunday and forgetting God the other 6 days. All the things that we're used to being seen here when our spiritual life is suffering and it needs attention, it needs nutrition. And the real things that give it nutrition are the 4 yogas. At least do karma yoga, because if you're acting, why not act selflessly? You see? At least do your karma yoga correctly, because that will open the door to knowledge. There is no other use for action, Vivekananda says, except to awaken knowledge, to give you knowledge. There's no other use for action. Haven't you looked back in history and seen how many thousands of people have died and nobody remembers them? Do you know how many people have died since I started talking an hour and a half ago? And how many people have been reborn without knowledge of their true self since I started talking? We just hope that maybe one of those is born with knowledge of the self, that we have an enlightened soul has come to the world again, you see. Something will happen to hearken that, you see. The psychics will all go, something happened. I intuited. But, the yogis aren't all that excited about it, because hundreds and thousands of enlightened souls have come to this world, and it hasn't made no never mind. Except to a few individuals, you see. So if you're one of those individuals, then wake up.
You're like chemistry. You're rare.
You're rare, you're precious, right. You're the Atman. You're Atman all abiding. So, relying on refuge in house, spouse, wealth, and offspring, that's called the Eshana Trayam. Trayam means 3, Eshana means triple bond. The world is a great pit, your relatives are vipers inside. Who said that? Not me. Not me to my mother. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that. He also said, though, so that anyone out there watching this live stream doesn't go, I don't know if I want to follow that person. He also said, if your parents are dharmic, then you should serve them like gods. They're your first gurus. But if they're not dharmic, you have a right to renounce them. Grant unto Caesar what is Caesar's, because don't strew pearls in front of swine. All those sayings, those acidic sayings of the prophets and seers and avatars come forward to us, but they're like great permission to us, aren't they? They're like a relief of a burden. If we've had confusion and we're still wondering about the problem of doubt, we don't know about divine reality, we don't know about our formless nature, we don't even know the purpose of our life. So then statements like that all of a sudden create a new nadi. Then energy flows along it. And maybe that's one nadi that's not going to close up so quick on you. You're going to remember that, you see. Because the experiences you're going to have after retreat when you go back out in the world will be of that variety. The devotees aren't really, they're protected, but they don't really escape. Mother doesn't want them to escape into some pie in the sky, bliss field. See? She's not into bliss bunnies or follow your bliss. See? How can you follow that which is already yours? See, you're in it. You realize it on the spot. But she does want to expose you to some of the realities, the harsh realities of the world, because didn't she say, as you go towards Ramakrishna Loka, which is your natural habitat now, then help others along the way. That's my request of you. If you would be a greater soul, see, more compassionate if you help others along the way. So let's take all of those things into our break and come back in 10 or 15 minutes. Our live stream audience can see some of these charts possibly, and we will go through this last reason for lack of spiritual success, look at some of the solutions, and also this beautiful little list of signs of spiritual success. See if you have any of them. I wish them all upon you. So, Om Hari Om. Take a break. We are back now with our live stream audience and our local group of 15, 16 people here at the Seattle retreat in Washington or in United States, and a beautiful sunny Indian summer afternoon, and we are inside because there's many beautiful objects in the internal world too, and we've been connecting the external to the internal in cause and effect form, as is a penchant that we have in all Indian darshanas, and then using that internal to get to the transcendent or to the absolute level. That's the track we're on, and that's the major artery or nadi, like the Sushumna, that's going up the precious human body from gross to subtle to causal, and then headed toward that union with Paramashiva. Shakti wants to unite with Paramashiva so that that vision of oneness will occur. And I and my Father are one, will be proved to be one. That is, they always are one. The Jiva is Shiva. The Atman and Paramatman are one thing, or the Jiva-Atman and the Paramatman are one thing. But we have to prove it to ourselves, and I was saying yesterday, that's really the purpose for life, is if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. That is basically, you have many, many strong reasons to get put off or waylaid from seeing your true nature. Attraction to objects, we've been talking about, delusion concerning the true nature of the world, attachment to pleasures, failure to awaken spiritually. If we went back to that just briefly at the break while we were in between our two halves of our class today, we were talking about the failure to awaken spiritually in terms of a call that one receives. And it's basically, there are, as we said yesterday in the Kundalini Yoga tradition, testing, like you would say, test into the mic to see if it's working. Udgata rises up the spine to a next level of consciousness, and it opens up light to the mind of the soul of the aspirant. And if the aspirant recoils, then it shrinks away. If the aspirant is ready, then it will remain. And then person goes from lower truth to higher truth that way. Asato mad satkamoya tamaso mad jyotir. Finally they even get beyond mritjor, death, and transcend death in that way. So this step-by-step process is going on. So that's the call to awaken spiritually. But if a person recoils from that, it's not ready, then Kundalini will fall back down, and then that isn't really what we're talking about when we say failure to awaken spiritually. That is, there is many tests going on, many inklings, you might call them, glimmers, and people can have the kibosh put on it in many ways. Their psychiatrist, their father, mother, their friend, can say it's just all in your imagination. It's not good for you to think that way. It's not healthy. But that is, of course, the highest health, is to respond, to awaken to a spiritual calling. That's rare, given in this day and age particularly. So the real call to spiritual awakening is something very definitive. And if you're really guilty of losing a great opportunity if you don't awaken at that time. In other words, conditions will be fairly obvious for your spiritual awakening. Karmas will be neutralized, or at least be held in abeyance for a while. The gunic cycles will diminish, and you'll be in sattva most of the time. So at that time when the getting's good, this great insight will dawn upon you, or any host of great insights that could be doorways, nadis, opening into a higher realization will open to you. And quite often you'll start to pursue them and then fall back. Patanjali calls that anavasti tattvani. Nice long Sanskrit word. Anavasti tattvani, 7 syllables. Or calls it alabdha bhumikatva. Alabdha bhumikatva, 7 syllables. I'm having a competition between words to see so far which is the longest word. So it means backsliding. making one step forward and two steps back. And so how many of us haven't complained about that or thought about that when we think we should be making full-on progress, since that we backslide like that? And so many of the circumstances of the world get in the way and rail against that progress that we should be making. So in that way, we want to mention that it's not awakened spiritually to just a few little inklings, but there is a definitive call in each person's life. I'd say even in the lives of worldly people, they have a very definitive call. Sri Ramakrishna used to mention that. He said, when the lotus, the blue lotus of rare variety, opens in the sun, and and then the cloud comes in front of the sun and it can't bear it, so it closes. So he's talking about worldly people have samadhi too. They have some level of samadhi at some time in their life, as if Mother is giving everyone an opportunity. And we mentioned last night, everyone has a chance to awaken. But if they just want to remain worldly, or if they want to remain doing evil deeds, and that's their penchant and that's their nature in that lifetime, then their true nature is definitely hidden, and they will just continue on in that tact, sailing in the ocean of ignorance or samsara. So I wanted to mention that, going back, some conversation we had at the break about the definitive awakening, the call that everyone is given, the clarion call, sometimes they title it. But then we did go on to refuge in the Ashanatrayam, and we stopped here at work with, obsession with work and activity. Now, just in case we didn't do this one fully enough, that is here, delusion concerning the true nature of Brahman. We did look at how the world, we should look at the world, but we didn't look really at how the true nature of Brahman, you see, or our Atman. Just look there quickly because we've had this chart before.
You can move that closer.
Yes, can you help me? Pardon us, Mother. You're behind everything anyway. So, just refresh yourself really quick in 60 seconds. The self is unborn. The self is stable, unmoving, which is a good thing to meditate on. Being absolutely still. If you want to see God, and you want to see as God sees, then you should become absolutely still, because it sees everything from stable position, witnesses everything. If 2 trains, 3 trains are passing each other, they're all going the same speed, or if some of them are going different speeds, you're in the middle train, and you have a sort of perspective of what's moving and what's not. But Brahman is not like that. It's like stable. It's watching everything move from absolutely unmoving position. So from Brahman down to a blade of grass, Astavakra says. The self is absolute, nityaha. It's ancient, or maybe a better word would be timeless, puranaha. It's achala, it's immovable, as very much close to that, stable. It's sanatana, it's eternal. It's avikaryaha, inactive. It's sort of almost another way of saying immovable and stable, but it really gets more to a different sort of connotation of that, doesn't it? Because we're also active, and inaction is something that most of us don't not only prefer, but maybe even attempt or try for, or have any attraction to. Gee, I think I'll be inactive. It doesn't occur, except when you sleep. So that's the problem. The only time we're inactive is when we're sleeping. And we pull the curtain of nescience over us and, wrap ourselves in it and have a nice, warm, cozy sleep in a sort of false formlessness. It's shashvataha, immutable. It's avyaktaha, unmanifested, with a capital U, by the way, because there is that unmanifested prakriti, which is not absolute, but in which everything is held in abeyance. It's avyayam, inexhaustible. And all you have to do is study the prana and shakti for a while to know where that dynamism comes from. Brahman itself may be stable and immutable and inactive, and and immovable, but its Shakti power certainly isn't. It goes everywhere at once. Well, that's what omniscience means. We call it the three Oms. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, right? The three Oms. It's Avinashi. And if you're looking on, my friend, salutations to you. And we have a student there back east right now looking, called Avinashi. It's indestructible. It's sarvagataha, all-pervading. That's a good one. It doesn't need to go anywhere. You see, if it is immovable and stable, it's because it's all-pervasive. If you all of a sudden had a thought, I think I'll go find Brahman, you see, it would have already been there before the thought even occurred to you. And you couldn't go after it without already being in it, you see. All-pervasive is a very beautiful word in English. It's achintyaha, incomprehensible. So Ramakrishna says, that which is Atman is unattached, Maya is in it. One cannot see Atman. Sugar mixed with water disappears. Just so, when Atman gets mixed, that is, in parentheses, or in quotation marks, with the world, beings fail to notice it. Beautiful way of saying, it's like when sugar mixes with water, you don't see it, but the Atman is mixed in with everything, as it were. That's why the parentheses, mixed in with form. People don't notice it. It disappears inside the context of form. And you can see where Vivekananda got a lot of his teachings. He says, you are never in Maya. Maya is in you, so get rid of it. So he would hear his teacher say that and formulated in his great mind these ways of expressing it to us. So a quick run through the 13 inherent characteristics of the Atman. In fact, there is Swami Vivekananda's quote that we can end with. It is not in the brain but in the heart that the Atman, possessed of knowledge, power and activity, has its seat. The chief nerve center near the heart, called the sympathetic ganglia, is where the Atman has its citadel. We might as well have started with that quote and then gone into this chart about all the nadis and the lokas and everything, because there in the heart, you see, they're giving it a nice medical name for it from the Western standpoint, sympathetic ganglia. Even that is kind of nice, isn't it? Sympathetic. But there's a citadel in there, you see. So he's referring to the heart, which is the Anahata chakra there, that fourth chakra. There's three lower and there's three higher. So it's sort of the hub of everything. So that's where it has its citadel, that Atman. It abides there. Stationary but becoming manifold, as the Svetasvatara Upanishad says. So just another quick return to this number 2. You should know the nature of Brahman and the self, and here's a good list of its inherent characteristics. When we say inherent, it doesn't mean like these are like ornaments pinned on a Christmas tree. That would mean something added on. It means inherent means this is the green of the tree. This is the very nature of the tree. So if anyone who's too extremely Advaitic or pseudo-Advaitic comes at you and says, Atman doesn't have any characteristics, you can say, I beg to differ. Its characteristics are this very nature. When you say Atman, we're saying all of this. And we might as well be saying love, compassion, and wisdom too. As those things from the dualistic standpoint are some things we are seeking. But from the non-dualistic standpoint, they're already within us. Kingdoms of heaven within you and so forth. All wisdom lies within you, Patanjali says in yoga. Now the next one is very apropos for the West, this final cause of lack of spiritual success. It's called obsession with work and activity. We just mentioned the inactivity that we need to practice there to cut time down and know ourselves to be all-pervasive. But here he says duty, this is Vivekananda by the way saying this, duty is the midday sun whose fierce rays are burning the very vitals of humanity. So again, if you're running nerves, if you're running nadis, if you're creating channels, rivers of prana and so forth, and they're going only towards activity, then these are things you're going to have to deal with always. You know, they're going to be tendencies towards work, tendencies towards restlessness. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with that if your work is serving God and mankind. That's why you're here. Swami Vivekananda used to say, it's better to burn out than to rust out. So, if you're here in the field of action, why not do action? It's just a matter of how should I do it? And that's why you look at a chart like this. I like it. Karma Yoga and the philosophy of work. A very good look here at this. Quote is by a rare quote by Swami Vivekananda. His name was Kali, and he attended upon Holy Mother as one of her first attendants. When he was just a young boy, Sri Ramakrishna took little young Kali to her and said, "This boy is very pure, he'll serve you." So he had direct contact with the Mother of the Universe at a very young age. And he was the one that wrote so many beautiful songs about her. We sing Prakritim almost every satsang night. Prakritim paramam abhayam varadam nararupadaram janatapaharam sharanagata sevakatoshakaram pranamami param jananim jagatam. So beautiful, my favorite. Devim prasanam pranatarti hantrim yogindra pujam jugadharma patram. The pujaris know this. Tam sharadam bhakti vijnana datram daya swarupam, the essence of compassion. Pranamami nityam, I salute that eternal. Nityam, nityaha. So it means, oh propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned. You have to be resigned and self-surrender to her before she'll destroy your misery. See? Otherwise, she leaves you with the world mother. Sri Ramakrishna says that's like the cat with its claws out. But the Divine Mother is like the cat with the claws in, playing with the kitten. See? But the cat with the claws out plays with what? A poor little mousie. I shall cover her fangs, when she picks up the kitten, but she won't do that. Give that same boon to the poor little rat or mouse, you see. So basically, she wants you to kill her of misery and souls resign to her, oh soul, take refuge in her. And killer of misery and souls resigned, by saints and sages worshipped, O mother kind. That is, beings like Brahmananda and Vivekananda worshipped her. And my teacher worshipped her. By saints and sages worshipped, O mother kind. Give us love and wisdom, thou. O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. One of the beautiful verses of one of Vivekananda's song. Let's take his quote here about work. Ordinarily we make ourselves like machines, laboring without cessation until we grow weary, discouraged, and unhappy. When, however, we realize that there is within us something which transcends all activities, which is unchanging, immovable, and eternally at rest, is why we just took that last chart, then we accomplish our daily tasks without discouragement or loss of strength, because we have learned the philosophy of work. And what great energy economy these great souls were. Their name has lasted for thousands of years, and will last for thousands of more, and will probably be there at the end of Mahapralaya and come back to us. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Christ, Muhammad, they'll come back to us as living entities, like icebergs that the heat of Mahapralaya could never melt. Some icebergs in the ocean, Sri Ramakrishna said, are so big and so solid, they've just like turned to crystal and the sun can't melt them. So those are the Jesuses and the Buddhas and the great souls. So in that regard, then, they have a great economy of energy. They accomplish so much without almost even lifting a finger. They can just wander in the world, and their very bones will teach. Even after they pass away, their bones teach, as dust. You see, just bury them in some certain place like the Kaaba in Mecca, and you'll have hundreds and thousands of people going there just because of the dust of your bones. You see. If that's not your bones, go on teaching that, I don't know what is. You see. So let's look at work here. And I borrowed and also added one of my own, what Vivekananda used to say about it. It should be work as worship. It should be labor as love. It should be service as sacrifice. Good way of, 3 ways of looking at it if you want another triputi to stick in your hopper. Well, we start with a very exacerbated karma. When we move on to accruing karma, on to recurrent karma, go to attenuated karma, that's where it starts getting a bit of relief, the soul, and neutralize the karma, and then finally just dissolve the karma outright. So that's kind of the stages. And so I've called this the hovel of heinous acts. I've called this the shanti of selfless works. You're saying, oh my shanti, oh my shanti, oh my shanti, but you should be saying, oh shanti, shanti, shanti. See? Then recurrent karma is like the domicile of dire duty. See? That's, of course, right in step with Abhedananda's quote. If you get to attenuated karma, it becomes like the castle of charitable concerns. Now you're altruistic leaning. But beyond altruism is the sanctuary of selfless service. There can be nothing better than that in the realm of works, selfless service. And this is actually beyond all work. It's not no karma at all. It's the abode of action and inaction, where I'm stable, I'm immovable, I'm eternal, I'm inactive. You know, the chart we just looked at, I'm the Atman, that thou art. And that thou art. Sannyas and bold say
Om Tat Sat Om.
Om Tat Sat Om. Yeah. In just a day he's memorized the first 7 verses. Sannyas. So come up to Portland next week and we'll show you. Have him recite it for us. I don't want to embarrass him on live streaming in case he hasn't quite got it memorized. But Smriti Rupena Samstita, she exists as the awakened memory in all beings, in the minds of all beings. She's the awakened memory. So she's coursing along those nadis, you see, opening them up, keeping them open. But you have to be resigned to her, right? You have to resign. She destroys the misery. Misery is darkness, not knowing. And the other miseries that come from that main misery are pain and suffering of physical and mental kind. But there's that one ultimate source of misery, just avidya, unknowing, cloud of unknowing, curtain of nations, not knowing the nature of the true self, all the way back here. You see. I do not know the nature of the world, do not know the nature of the self, I do not know the nature of Brahman. But Ramakrishna says, if they knew who I am, who they are, and what the world is, they'll be fine. Just take that one saying for the rest of your life and follow it. That's what Holy Mother said about Sri Ramakrishna. She said the avatar who's come this time in the form of Sri Ramakrishna is for everyone. It's for everyone. Even the evil can take refuge there. He's a bottomless pit where you can pile every transgression you ever committed in, and you still won't find the bottom of it. So, if you want to know the true nature of Brahman and the self and the world, then Holy Mother said, Ramakrishna said a lot of things in his life, lots of things, and they were all true. But if you just take one of them and meditate on it, that'll be enough for you. You really, it sounds sort of like an amazing claim at first, but when you just take each of these things individually, you see how powerful they are. They are nadis. They're concourses. When you're driving along the freeway with lots of other cars, just think, I'm in the river of prana, coursing up a main thoroughfare of consciousness. This is the way our founder thought of things, like Sixon. If he saw a hotel being built and there were demonstrators outside saying, this is going to ruin our beach, he said, that's not a hotel, that's a temple with gods and goddesses in it. And the asuras are out there with their, don't do this, don't do this. See? A being knows that nothing can be taken away from Brahman and nothing can be added to Brahman. There's nothing that can affect Brahman, good or bad. You can do 1,000,000 good acts, you can do 1,000,000 bad acts. Makes no never mind to Brahman. His beautiful story about that? The leaf from the tree falls in the gutter, or it can fall in the churchyard, the temple ground, or on a main road. Makes no difference to the tree. So nothing is going to affect Brahman. This world is a dream, though true it seem. But the only truth is He, the living. The real He is none but me, and never, never matter changing. Never, never matter changing. The real He is none but me. I am that. And I'm never matter. No mind, no matter. No matter, never mind. So, being clear about that thins the curtain of nescience right about in that area. Enough light will flood through that thinned part of the curtain to start illuminating your fears and your ignorance. See? Just pierce a light, a hole somewhere in that darkness. And that's a nadi. And that's one that will remain. It's this one you meditated on. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. It's one that you meditated on, Manana. You turned it into realization.
Excuse me.
Double bless you. So, we could take these quotes about the hovel of heinous acts. He says, the demonic know not what to do or what to refrain from. Oh, well, we had this morning in the Gita. Bound by 100 ties of hope, given over to lust and anger, they strive to secure by unjust means hoards of wealth for sensual enjoyment. That's the number one best sentence I've ever encountered by Sri Krishna in the Gita to describe the worldly or the demonic. It has everything in it, put nicely in one sentence, one sloka. About the shanti of selfless works, Ramakrishna says, once a man took up residence in an old hut. Soon the winds began to shake it. The man remembered that Hanuman was the son of the god of the winds. So he prayed to him, "Oh, Hanuman, save my hut." Still the winds did not abate. Next, he remembered that Hanuman was the devotee of Ram, whose younger brother was Lakshmana, and he declared, "This hut is Lakshmana's. I'll pray to him. He'll save it." The winds continued, however. Finally the man cried out, "This is Ram's hut." But the winds blew stronger. As the hut began to collapse around his ears, the man rushed from the hut with a curse, yelling, "This is the devil's own hut." So we can rant and rave and talk big and do anything about our work in the world. It's nothing but the devil's own hut. Give it up. Give it up how? Either altogether as a monk or by degrees. Turn it into selfless service. And in fact, that could be the higher road than the monk. That could be what's needed. That's why Vivekananda's sannyas, his monastery, his mat, his mission, is all about helping and serving humanity. It's not the old style, go into a cave, renunciation. That is effective for some souls. But it's much more compassionate, isn't it? Much more needed. Bringing karma yoga into vogue, into the spotlight. Jnana, bhakti, and jnana yoga, fine, but bringing it into the spotlight, very important. Now let's look at the domicile of dire duty. Do not work yourself out, it is of no use. Duty is the midday sun whose fierce rays are burning the very vitals of humanity. It is necessary for a time as a discipline. Beyond that, it is a morbid dream. This dream, this thirst for life,
quench from birth to death.
It drags
from birth to death, from death to birth, the soul. He conquers all who conquers self. No, the sin never yields, and yasin bod, say Om Tat Sat Om.
Yeah, and when you say Om Tat Sat, say it loud for the camera.
Om Tat Sat Om.
Yeah, so beautiful. This thirst for life forever quench. So he's talking about life. Life is accompanied by birth and death. He's not speaking about eternal life. Eternal life is something that you are going to claim for yourself. And then you can have as many births, lives, and deaths as you want. And they'll be incidental to your consciousness. The castle of charitable concerns, with this nice image of a man balancing his ancestors, you see on either of the scales over his shoulder. He has to carry that. So Lord Buddha has a nice quote here. Buddha was actually known for transcendence and nirvana and sitting in meditation for multiple days, but he had some very great teachings about work, about action. He says, do not think lightly of merit, saying, it will not come to me. By the constant fall of water drops, the pitcher is filled. Likewise, the wise person, accumulating merit little by little, becomes full of merit. So maybe a Kramamukti type of approach where you're getting enlightenment by degrees. But why put that down? You know, why not say that this step-by-step enlightenment, Kramamukti, is helping me gain lots of experience as a soul. I'm learning everything from the ground up. I'm rather tantric, you see. Rather tantric because the tantric seers overturned every rock, looked in every corner, shone a light on every shadow, see, so they could find out everything about the world and about people and about worldly people and about seers too. They looked at it all. The tantric path is a path of deification. I'm going to deify everything here. Tired of fault finding and criticizing or trying to transcend or working with the world or compromising. See? I'm just going to deify it all. But in order to do that, I have to know what it is. So Vivekananda said, I will know what is here, and I will know what is here, and it will never frighten me like some bugaboo. I am here, I will know what is here, and I will know what it is, what its nature is. So that I can either pack it away in unmanifested prakriti where it came from, or I can transcend it. Or I can utilize it. I can utilize it for some great purpose. This horrible thing, you see. Technological devil. Taking away my ability to meditate on the scriptures because I look at it all day, you see. But I think I'll use it for teaching. I think I'll pack it with a bunch of jnana wisdom, you see. Use it for some purpose. It's Maya, but I'll put Mahamaya. I'll bring Mahamaya out of it. Because the tendency in the technological age is, with computers and everything, is, oh, I think I'll look for that sloka online. Okay, I've read it, that's it. Put it in my report, hand it into the teacher. But I forgot that there's 3 stages to learning. Hearing or seeing, rolling it around in my mind to get the meaning, and realizing what the meaning is. And the 4th stage would be then, since I know it so well, I should try and transmit it to you, to my mother. See? Max's mother wrote me and said, I just dropped him off at the curb. He's on the way to the retreat. We love him to go to your retreats because then he comes home and shares all this wisdom with us. I'm saying, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are dharmic parents in the West. Or at least dharmic parents in the making. See? I love to be wrong about a lot of the things I say. I'm a Westerner here in the West right now, you see, so it's obvious. Well, Sri Sarada Devi comes in with some beautiful teachings about the sanctuary of selfless service. That is a rather difficult metaphor to understand. The flash of lightning is seen in a window pane, but not in the wooden shutters. If you heard just that much, would you know what she meant? Only the pure mind can see God in others and serve Him there. In such beings, spiritual power gets awakened and liberation is attained. So now it becomes a little bit more clear. When your mind is purified, then that flash of lightning is in the window pane. It's seen by all, but it's dampened by the shutter, isn't it? You don't see it in the shutter. Or you could even interpret it to say that the sage is the shutter, and the glimmer of light that happens momentarily in the window pane is just a passing insight. But hidden inside of that flash of lightning is this, you see, it's deep inside. You have to look below the surface. So whatever the case may be, she and he, Sarada and Ramakrishna, were always looking at things and seeing the true purpose in them. You saw somebody milking on the farm, and he would say, milk, there's butter in milk. See, they just proved it to me because I saw someone churning it for an hour, and then I noticed that they put it in a quiet place and didn't touch it. But then one day I noticed someone touched it and messed with it, and the butter didn't come, you see. But someone else followed it right, and just sat there, and the butter finally came to the surface, and I gathered it. So basically, in the old style of farming, maybe different nowadays, but basically you churn that, and you get the essence out of it. But the churning is sadhana, right? Letting it sit still is meditation. After you churn, make sure and meditate. That means after you find what you're looking for on this contraption, you make sure you turn it off and meditate on that. You'll find out that wisdom was in you all the time. If you don't do this, you'll find out that you'll begin to think in delusion that it's somewhere else. Oh, that wisdom is somewhere else, and I have to become dependent on it, along with spouse, home, wealth, and offspring. My desk and the computer is what I'm dependent on. I have to run to Google to find my wisdom. When all of wisdom is inside myself, and whoever invented Google was in their mind. You see. Whoever gave it the name, silly as the name is. Well, the last entry here is the abode of action in inaction. You see the man meditating there in perfect balance. Here we have the Svetashvatara Upanishad saying, there are two birds closely related and very much alike, which perch on the same tree. One of them eats ripe fruits and sour fruits in turn. The other, however, refrains from eating any fruit. It only watches as a spectator. So in the upper branch, there's this bird that's sitting in the sunlight, not having good and bad experiences, ripe and unripe fruits. And then there's a lower bird that's always looking up, eating fruits, getting sick and healthy in turns. Because sickness always follows health, and then health follows sickness again. And so it's caught in the dualities. But it keeps looking up, rather in guilt, rather in longing. And finally it just flies and perches up on the top branch of the bird and gives up dualities altogether. Been there, done that. Enough spittle. So work as worship, labor as love, service as sacrifice. Take that up in accordance with this obsession with work and activity. How to overcome it. Either all at once, the big gulp, or stage by stage. It's up to you. But do it. Just do it. Now, returning in the remaining 20 minutes or so, and this is wrapping up our retreat. We'll have some announcements at the end of the retreat after we leave our live audience and as we close up our retreat and head for our final meal too. We should look at the solutions for lack of spiritual success. There you see that quote I said later. There's Ram, the excellent archer, and he says, with a mind made sharpened by thoughts on reality alone, release and penetrate that mark, the imperishable Brahman. So he is completely focused in on these solutions for spiritual success. Now that you know what the causes are, then apply the solutions and then find signs of spiritual success emerging in you, ones that stay constant, ones that don't just come and go. So first, renounce desires and cravings. Now, I'm not going to go through this chart, but I'm going to let you into a beautiful little secret that Annapurna will take this up this afternoon in her class. So please attend her class roughly from about 2 to 3:30, short class. And it's rather Vedanta 101, so it fills in a lot of gaps. But as far as desires and cravings and so forth, this is a very good chart to plunge into multiple times. It has to do with cycles, as you can see, circles that people get on. And it also connects very much with our lokas, doesn't it? Burloka, Bhavarloka, Swarloka, that is earth and the higher heavens, lower heavens, and how to penetrate through that granthi and get into the higher levels of consciousness. So it could go, directly with our chart on the nadis. We could, if we had a way of, having clear overlays, we could on a screen we could just like overlay these so you can see how they work. So please be on hand for that class this afternoon. It'll be the final class of our retreat. Now, engage in daily sadhana. Shankara, Gaudapada, especially that line, says that you wipe the mirror of the mind clean by engaging in daily sadhana. Otherwise, your view of reality gets distorted. Because the mind is dual by nature, it collects impurities. A pure mind, is that a contradiction in terms? A pure mind is no mind. That's how to clear that up. Both Buddha and Ramakrishna said so. Buddha called it no mind or destruction of mind or Buddha mind, and Ramakrishna called it pure mind. He said his words were pure mind is God. So when we're talking about a mind that is, when you engage in daily sadhana, that you want to wipe the mind clean, it's that psychological mind. It's that subtle body in there. It's a very wonderful instrument if it's kept clean. It's not the ultimate, but it's a very wonderful instrument because intelligence can reflect through it. Ripe ego can act through it. All the constituents of the antahakarana, the fourfold mind, will find a good seat in the mind if it's kept pure in that way. And the purifying agent is sadhana. You must do it every day, even if it's just a little. Otherwise, you're guilty of negligence of Brahman. Negligence of your true nature, and that's avidya, isn't it? And the fifth klesha, the first klesha will come upon you, and eventually you'll find yourself clinging to life at the very lowest klesha, abhinavesha. Avidya is the first of 5 hells, and it's a doorway into all the other 4, if you study your yoga. So that's opening nadis in the wrong direction. Nadi, nadi. You want to open them inward, upward, transcendent. Take refuge in a path and preceptor. You can see I'm going through these rather swiftly and just adding a few clarifying points in there, but as the time is running out on us, but this it still allows us to get through the solutions. Take refuge in path and preceptor, especially against something like the Ashanatrayam. If you have Ashanatrayam around you, that is the Maya of family, the Maya of friends, and all of that is around you and you're aware of it, then you can counteract it by simply taking refuge in Guru and path. Maybe drag one of your friends or your mother to the Guru and the path. See how it works. It's all experimental in this day and age, in the West. Lex Kixon was always saying that. Well, let's try this experiment now. Let's try this experiment now because this isn't India, and this isn't India in the old times. This is the West in modern times, contemporary times, and so there's a lot here that escapes the eye, a lot underneath the surface. So we try some experiments and recover from them if they fail, and rejoice in them if they succeed. Failure and success is what it's all about after all, but we'll never know unless we try. So this is a good addendum to, almost straight across the board to the reliance in home and family and spouse. Try relying on the teachings and the teacher and the path, and take recourse to them again and again, along with your sadhana. And these are teachings that repeat all the time. The triple gem, Guru, Dharma, and Sangha, spiritual path with holy company. And I mean, we give them different names, and they recur everywhere all the time. But it's only to impress upon us the need for this, as if this is really the essence of life in the world. This is really what our spiritual life consists of. And you can narrow it down to these 4 or 5 things. Then from those will come other offset others. Absorb yourself in love of truth. And in connection with 5, develop devotion and discrimination. And if you want to put those two together, Shankara said, my devotion is to discrimination. So he saluted Krishna at the beginning of most of his scriptures. I salute Govinda. You see, so he was aware of the deities, and of course his chosen deity was Shiva. Shankara, he took Shiva's name. So you can see that he is very much into knowledge of the deities, even though he's an Advaitist. He knows that deep inside there are levels of consciousness where deities pertain, you see. But he also knows mainly about this background consciousness, this underlying awareness, that's the witness of everything. And that's where he tends to keep his mind, and his teachings come from there. And his line of gurus. You heard in the song we sang yesterday with this extended poem, I was Shankara, who found his guru sleeping, Gaudapada's student, and who taught me so that I could go and teach others. So Govindapada was in a cave when Shankara found him. And when he was in his teens, he went looking. Found Govindapada, who was an incarnation of Patanjali, father of yoga. So he was just in a samadhi for a long time, almost dead, almost left the body, and then Shankara opened a cave. The villagers were too superstitious and afraid to do so, so he opened the cave and went in and awakened Govindapada and said, teach me what you know, and you're my guru, I've been looking for you. Then he went forth. So he learned from the guru of Gaudapada. So you have Gaudapada, Govindapada, and Shankara, and then all the Shankara mats coming from there. The 4 cardinal places of India where he established them. Just like Vivekananda, he walked the whole breadth and length of the subcontinent in 700 AD, roughly, and established these mats which are still existent today, and one of the most honorable orders, Shankara order, still in existence in India. So we say that in accord with his penchant to have devotion to discrimination. If you want to put it in Ramakrishna's way of saying, it's immerse yourself in the ocean of love again and again, like a towel dipped in water, until it's just absolutely soaked and permeated with truth. And there will just be no other recourse but to take to truth. Be no other place to go. Your ego will be malleable, your intelligence will be flowing, your mind will be amenable, and your thoughts will be positive. All 4 levels of your mind, the anta karana, the inner cause of things, will be that open and available to you to apply to spiritual life. So 2 at once we take there, and then 6, solution for lack of spiritual success, attain freedom from worldliness. It's a chronic disease in this day and age, Sri Ramakrishna called it. It's not the problem so much of evil and demonic and so forth. It's more a problem of people's apathy to hearing the truth. And then once they've heard it, to keep it constant and to spread it broadcast. Those are all things we're now responsible for according to Holy Mother, if we've taken refuge in her. It's not just to destroy our own misery, destroyer of misery and souls resigned, but it's also to go out and spread this to others who need our help. You share the truth. I mean, it's not like you're a guru. You go out and you share the truth, you spread it. It's like the second limb of bhakti, too. You must spread the teachings, Sri Ram says. So you should neither think yourself a guru, nor should you say, I can't teach. the two poles of the ego, right? Too much pride, too much sense of self-worth, lack of sense of self-worth. So basically you should share the teachings. Now Swami Vivekananda came to this country. He went to the Ramakrishna order and said, "Why are you sending me to the West, to New York?" I can't teach. I'm not qualified to teach. And I think Swami Sarada, or one of the main Swamis, said, "We're not sending you there to teach. We're sending you there to share what you know." So Lex was told that by Swami Vivekananda, or by one of his devotees. We have certain precious stories that are available to us of the Swamis, the lighted windows, they call them, who came to the West. San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and so forth. All the main cities have these centers. They started off, many of them, by direct disciples. Swami Vivekananda was one of them, whose quote we took recently. Vivekananda came here, saw them, wrote back to them and said, "You're all frogs in the well. You have not seen what I've seen. You should come and see what the West is up to." So he was very excited about us in his own way. And, especially those in England who became his lifelong disciples. But he said about the Americans later, they're rather like straw on fire. They blaze up first when they hear the teachings, but then they burn out. They don't last. So we mean to change that. How dare you say that about my America? Hoist the flag. No, actually, bring it down. Let's hoist the flag of Vedanta with the M sign on it. Let's be universal. Let's go beyond culture, beyond government. So, attain freedom from worldliness is going to be a great landmark in your spiritual history. You see, your spiritual evolution. A red banner day. You see, it's like that's going to be wonderful when you can call yourself a purely spiritual entity and with no trace of worldliness left in you. Ramakrishna said, otherwise, they come stinking of worldliness. We have just enough time, 5 or 10 minutes, to look at these 5 signs of spiritual success. See if you have any of them, or if you're feeling their onslaught. Tendency to do right action. Eightfold Path of Buddha, for instance. Right action is one of those Eightfold Paths. Tendency to do it would mean also that you don't even have to think about it anymore. It's not like, should I do it? Is it good? Is it bad? Again, it's rather experimental. But basically, your intention is right. And so your action is going to bear fruit in that way. Bear fruit in different ways, like karma, but it will tend to attenuate karma. Even negative acts that are done with right intention tend to attenuate karma. As you see what it's like out there, how precarious it is. So you begin to be more careful and more insightful about how you act. Till finally you're a Zen Roshi walking on rice paper. See? Never leave a wrinkle. Or a bird flying across the sky. Left no trace. See? So negative actions done with right intention, that is, you're not intending them to be negative acts, are karma attenuators. That's why Lord Copula gave us the teachings of, how's it put, acts of what?
Acts of stupefaction.
Thank you, the word was escaping me. Good acts of stupefaction, bad acts of stupefaction. And of course you could probably say mixed acts of stupefaction. So what you want is, of course, to wake up from even good acts of stupefaction. Now, presence of natural discernment. We're talking about natural things that come up, right? Tendency to do right action. The presence of natural discernment, viveka, or vairagyam in this case, has come to. So one knows what to do and what not to do. Not like what Sri Krishna said today in the Gita. though, or the other day, I think it was yesterday morning, those etheric beings, they don't know what to do and what not to do, he said. So they're constantly running afoul of nature and afoul of humanity, and also directly in contradiction to their true self, covering it over all the time. Third is increased knowledge of reality. So you may have devotion to Sri Ramakrishna or to Shiva or to your Ishtam, and you may have your life all together and everything's proceeding well, and then you say, well, I have a little bit of spiritual success here, but I'm not feeling enlightened yet. So you go to your Swami or to your Rinpoche or to your teacher, your guru, and you say, what can I do now? Everything seems to be balanced. And they say, increase your devotion to God and expand your wisdom. Well, expand your wisdom base means look into these teachings and memorize them, manana, meditate on them. Run them through your mind all the time, because when you run a thought like that, a truth like that through your mind, you're opening a channel. Our whole retreat started on that, that's why I'm referring to it so often. The nadis, we kind of stop thinking of them as some sort of nerves and some cosmic guy who floats around space. We want to think of them as channels that we can open right now.
Live stream.
Like a live stream channel, right? Even more internal than that. Even a tributary. You see, a huge one, getting into the Sushumna, rising with her, rising on high. All right, so penultimate here, non-reliance on body, senses, and morals. It's almost an echo of this, isn't it? Relying on refuge of home, spouse, family, and offspring. But it gets a little bit more towards the individual. That is, probably the key part of that teaching is my morals are not going to get me enlightened. I'm going to have to go beyond ethics and morals after I observe them and understand them to what's called the Dharma. Those are teachings. Often I use that analogy, the difference between a commandment and a dharmic teaching is thou shalt not kill as opposed to thou cannot kill. Dharmic teaching will show you the illusoriness of death, which if you say thou shalt not kill, then justifies the commandment, doesn't it? Because you can refrain from killing and be committing a good act of stupefaction, can't you? Like Arjuna was about to do, wasn't it? So you should look into the dharmic teachings, because they're going to give you the acid-like truth of the situation without any second thoughts. And then you'll know what to do truly and what not to do. And eventually you'll know how not to do it all. Action and inaction. You come naturally to that. You won't be able to do that when the curtain of nations is thick with unresolved karmas. Finally, we have the will to perform spiritual practice. The teaching around it is, get the will to perform spiritual practice.
How?
By getting the will to perform spiritual practice.
Just do it.
Yes. Generate it. Generate it inside yourself. As we were talking about with Andrew, you're famous now. Basically, it's that grace, isn't it? It's the knowledge that self-effort and grace go hand in hand. So call upon her. Give me the will to do spiritual practice. I know I should. I see other people doing it. My teacher keeps telling me about it. And then once I have it started, may I increase it. Increase my knowledge, increase my devotion. And then pretty soon I'll have natural discernment, and I'll know how to engage in sadhana properly, and my desires and cravings will go away, and so forth. I'll be engaging in right action naturally. Work is worship, labor is love, sacrifice is service. So it all connects nicely back into the eternal Dharma, or the Jnanakasha, the Atmagyan teachings, a storehouse of India's wisdom that's available to us here and now in this eternal moment, and just waiting to run channels into your mind, into the dark places of your mind, even right down into your very brain. which is different than a mind. Let's let light leap through the nerves. Nerves of all types, gross, subtle, and causal. And then we'll understand the truth, and the truth will set us free. So, may truth betide all, may good come to all, may all see the face of truth and be fortified by the armor of love. Om Sato, Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamaya, Mrichor Ma Mritam Gamaya, Abhira Abhira Mayeti, Rudrayate Dakshina Mukam, Tenamam Pahinicham, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light, from lower truth to higher truth, from the unreal to the real, and from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om